You know who deserves a ton of credit after the second week of the college football season? It's Texas. They go to Michigan and beat up on the Wolverines, and I don't think anybody was all that surprised that that is what happened. They are playing really well through the first 2 weeks of the year, and obviously, I hate the fact that I have to say, like, hey, things can change, or they might get caught napping at some point or whatever. But through 2 weeks, they look really, really, really good. Their stock undeniably is on the rise. And there aren't many, I don't think, college football stocks that are on the rise right now, unless you're like, is Northern Illinois stock on the rise? Yes, absolutely. Ends up in the top 25 in the AP poll. If the college football playoff started today, the Huskies would be in the field. It doesn't, though. We've got until damn near Christmas to figure that out, which I'm okay with. But outside of really Texas, I don't know how you look around the college football landscape and think hell yeah. Tennessee, yes. I'm going to talk about the Volunteers later in the week. Stock up. That's an impressive win over North Carolina State. But outside of Texas, Tennessee, who else jumps off the page to you right now is like, hey, these guys, maybe I underestimated them, or they deserve a little bit more credit. There's a lot of teams on the flip side of that. First off, I think you start with Colorado. You beat an FCS school by 5 at home. You then I got internet connection problems. You lose to an FCS school. You beat an FCS school by 5 points and then get absolutely trounced by Nebraska, where it's the final score. It's one of those, like, the final score is not indicative of what that game was. You got manhandled from start to finish. And the likelihood that Deion Sanders is just the world's helicopteriest helicopter dad rather than guy interested in being a college football coach seems to grow day after day after day, week after week after week, month after month after month. They got beat. You could probably add Nebraska to the stock up, but I don't know. They've been what I thought they would be. I sat here and told you when they go to Columbus in October, they're going to be 7-0. It's going to be a big time game, but that's neither here nor there. Colorado has been underperforming, unimpressive, and they want to act as if they've been impressive. And for Shedeur Sanders, who I think has the ability to be a first-round quarterback, to then come out and say, like, oh, well, we only lost because our offensive line stinks. I got hit way more than Dylan Raiola got hit. This isn't. Sometimes you just got to say, like, hey, they were a better team. I got to come out and be better. Like, that's, and I recognize that that's probably going to be a difficult thing for the son of Deion Sanders to admit, because he's probably never been told, like, hey, you were the reason we lost, or you have to play better. It's probably never been impressed upon him that he's got to perform better. It's always been everybody else's fault, not his, and that's not his fault. You can't affect the way you were raised. But Colorado, undeniably, is a stock down. Notre Dame is undeniably a stock down. Michigan is a stock down. Oregon is a stock down. Despite being 2-0, you beat an FCS school by 10, and then you should have lost to Boise State. And not a like should have. Like, a touchdown was counted when your player very clearly dropped the football before he crossed the goal line. They reviewed it and still got it wrong. It was incredibly clear. He did not have the ball as he entered the end zone, which, if you did not know, is a requirement still these days. You have to have control of the ball when you cross that line. He did not. 7 points that did count that shouldn't have. People expected Oregon to be a top 5 national title contender. And I said before the season, I think that's probably a little bit too high. I like Dillon Gabriel, but I don't like Dillon Gabriel that much. I don't like the idea that he is going to be some national championship lead you to the title quarterback. He's going to be pretty efficient. He's not going to beat himself. And you got to have some pretty good players around him to be successful. Penn State, stock down. You could probably argue should have lost to Bowling Green. That's after being a stock up the week before where they handle business against West Virginia. But I say all of that to say we don't have to be super irrational. We don't have to be illogical and ridiculous after 2 Saturdays, or in some cases 3 Saturdays of the college football season. This is all helped out by the fact that the 12-team playoff kind of absolves you from not being great in weeks 1 and 2. And I don't think the expectation should be that you are a buzzsaw the first 2 weeks of this season. Yes, it is impressive if you are that. Georgia, Texas, Ohio State. Is it a benefit? Sure. But should the fact that LSU lost a neutral site game to USC in August, hell, it might have been September at that point. I don't know. Yeah, it was September. Should that be held against them in December for why they're not the best team or one of the 11 best teams, 12 best teams in college football? No, I don't think that. And I've never really thought that. And I understand the idea that that lessens the regular season. I disagree. Because losing once lessens the regular season, because then it completely negates any chance you have of being successful on the grandest stages. In the past, if you lost in week 1 or 2, you could probably, realistically, probably work your way back to the top. But if you lost a college football game in November, your season was over, thus negating the final 3 weeks of the college football season, or however many games were left. If you lost in late October to Thanksgiving, your season meant exponentially less. And that is not the case anymore, which I think rules, which is awesome. Because you know what? LSU now has to be on top of their game pretty much until Thanksgiving. Colorado's got to win their next 10 to make the college football playoff. Notre Dame can't afford a loss to anybody outside of about 2 games on their schedule, and they can't afford more than one more loss. That makes every game really, really, really important. Still super important, because in a 4-game playoff, if what happened in South Bend last week happened, the next 10 weeks, the next 10 games don't matter for Notre Dame. And I don't know about you, but I think that system stinks. So, not a lot of stock ups right now. I don't know who you feel real great about outside of probably Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State. I don't know that you look anywhere around college football and say, like, oh man, Oregon. Alabama is the number 4 team right now, and you can say that they beat the tar out of South Florida just by looking at that score, 42-16. But I have eyes and an understanding of how football works, and I know that you put 28 on the board in that 4th quarter. You were locked in a battle with South Florida. Bowling Green was locked in Penn State was locked in a battle with Bowling Green. Oregon was locked in a battle with Boise State. Utah struggled with Baylor. Oklahoma State went to overtime with Arkansas, who I think might have been picked to finish 15th in the SEC. Kansas State barely beat Tulane, probably should have lost to Tulane. Oklahoma barely beat Houston. Michigan got trounced. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. Arizona struggled to beat FCS Northern Arizona. Clemson beat the hell out of Appalachian State after having the hell beat out of them the week before. Who do you feel great about? Nobody. All right. Great. And I think that's probably how it should be after the first 2 weeks of the entire college football slate getting underway. I have some opinions that we'll do the rest of the week. I'll tell you tomorrow why you should blame Jim Harbaugh and not Connor Stallions for Michigan getting their asses kicked on Saturday. And I want to power to Tennessee. We'll do that later in the week here on the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you are listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.